Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns Creatures series of comedy fantasy novels and short stories. With me is Sam West, and today we're talking about the spell Antilife Shell. Not a big
Personal
fan, are you,
space.
Sam?
No, not really.
No. All right. Um, this is a druid spell. What level is it?
This is fifth level druid spell. It's also for Death Domain, Grave Domain, and Undead. So the Warlock subclass and two cleric ones. But it's fifth level. It takes an action to cast. It's got a range of self, a 10-foot radius sphere. It takes verbal somatic components, got concentration. That's important for an hour. Very long duration.
Hmm.
You get a shimmering barrier that extends in this area, the 10-foot sphere, remaining centered on you, and hedging out creatures other than undead or constructs. So if you're being attacked by zombies, tough titties. The barrier lasts for the hour. The barrier prevents an affected creature from passing or reaching through it. So anything that isn't an undead or construct cannot enter into the bubble. An affected creature can cast spells or make attacks with ranged or reach weapons to get through the barrier. Which means if you're fighting against functionally, I would go as far to say 95% of monsters in this game, this doesn't have text. If you move into a space that's affected by, or that it would make it affect a creature, the spell ends. So like if you're like, oh crap, I need to fit between this 20-foot wide gap, but there's a man standing in the center of it, you cannot enter it without ending the Antilife Shell.
Wow, that's
You
not fun.
Yeah, because it's 10-foot radius on either side of you. So you got a 20-foot diameter bubble that you need to then fit through other creatures. And if you ever just like stumble past a stupid earthworm, it goes away.
Now, your DM has to be kind of a dick if the earthworm is going to make the difference here.
Listen, I would say like depending on your environment, I would absolutely be the kind of BDM to be like you're in an insect-laden cavern, like really sell the lore of it being overrun by termites or something, and then the player's like, I run right through it, and I go, great, the termites pop the anti-life shell, and you have a bad day.
Oh, the
If I
spell's
made
already bad enough.
it, that's a great point, actually. I probably wouldn't do that because this spell is pretty terrible. But I think that I told you that there was life in the environment. You just went trudging through it and ignored me, and that's your fault. That is me being a petty bitch, though. Anyway, so what is your initial interpretation of this, Bob?
Um, yeah, pretty much the same as what you've been saying. I don't really see. I mean, I was kind of thinking, yeah, before you read that last line of text, I was thinking there might be some kind of fun things where like you could steamroll through a crowd or something, but no, you can't do that. Um, the only other thing I could think of is maybe you could block a passage, like if you're not intentionally moving, but you're in a corridor and there's a bunch of goblins armed with clubs, then
And clubs only.
yes, that they refused to throw.
Yes. Yeah, there.
That's it.
I think like, especially this being a druid spell, there would have been something really cool about just seeing your moon druid anti-life shell themselves turn into a bear and then just bowling ball their way through a bunch of creatures, right? Like I think there could be some really neat looks for this if this functioned more like a globe of invulnerability, if this functioned a little bit more like a good spell. But as is, I I genuinely struggle to see like use cases for this. So what I find particularly astounding is the things that I would normally want this against are like masses of melee range undead because they tend to have no range options, like gas schools, zombies. They tend to be smaller sized because there's more of them oftentimes, like even things like ghosts and specters and shadows and stuff. All of them ignore this. All
Yeah.
of them pile right in and kick the shit out of you. And then as you look towards like the other things in the upper tiers, you're not fighting beasts anymore, really. Those sort of phased out. And if you are fighting beasts, they probably have reach because they're probably enormous. But granted, they're not using weapons, they're using their like bodies, so they can't. You'll have to. I would rule they can't get in. If your DM's
Oh
like, no,
yeah.
that their arm is a ranged or a reach weapon, you're just out of
Yeah, but
luck.
I mean, it specifically says nothing can reach into this.
An affected creature can cast spells or make attacks with ranged or reach weapons through the barrier, which
Right.
means if they have a reach weapon, they can poke you through it.
But
But it
it
doesn't.
also says, let me go look at that.
The barrier prevents an affected creature from passing or reaching through.
Yes, there it is.
Yes. Again, I read this to say a gorilla arm having the reach property is not a weapon, but it is simply a thing that they do.
And a gorilla arm would have to reach through.
Agreed, but it is also a weapon with a reach property. So I think there would be a non-zero amount of questions about whether or not it can get in. I would rule it can't. I would rule the most sane people would say it can't. I do think that there'll be a few nitpicky DMs that go, oh, well, I mean, it's large. It just like breaks its way through a little bit, I guess. And that's going to feel unfun. In any case, even outside of this very small niche that we're talking about, where we're going to assume no, things that have a 10-foot reach need to be attacking with weapons, they can't be attacking with their fists. That's still a lot of things. That's still any large or larger creature with a weapon is probably attacking with the reach property. Probably has a 10-foot reach, in which case this doesn't have text against them. If it has a ranged option, this doesn't have text. They can just shoot you with that short bow. Those goblins that you talked about earlier, no, they all got short bows. You know what?
Yeah.
It's also just like free rocks. And you know what rocks are good at? Breaking concentration. If you're ever against like a mob of kobolds that don't want to throw their spears for some reason, because remember, the spears have range or thrown weapons, and most things like daggers are thrown too, so most weapons in this game can be leveraged somehow. They can pick up rocks, worst case scenario, and pellet you with them until you drop concentration. And if that's the best use case for this, is you eat some actions of like the mob, nah, that's not worth a 5th level spell slot. There's way better ways to do that.
Yeah, 5th level. That's rough.
And takes your concentration.
What do you think they were intending this for?
I think this was legacy. I think this was brought in from the 3.5 and older editions. They're like, let's just not update this to how people actually play the game.
Mm-hmm.
Because like the concentration mechanic, from my understanding, is a new feature of 5th edition to prevent stacking effects. If this didn't have concentration, okay, that's pretty nifty. You can never melee attack the whole duration. Not amazing, but nifty. It having concentration, the things that want to melee attack you will throw the shit at you until it drops it, and then continue to kick you. And you spend a 5th level spell slot on that. That's probably not worth it. And like that still doesn't necessarily keep out all of the big things with reach weapons that you're likely fighting often. I don't know.
Yeah, by the time you have 5th level spells available, I mean,
you're 9th level.
Yeah, what are you what are you fighting? You're not fighting wolves and stuff, or
you're beyond that tier. Yeah. I mean, like, against big elementals, sure, this is pretty good against like fire elementals and earth elementals and shit. A lot of those things tend to have special abilities though, so like a water elemental's whelm can just end this, because this doesn't say voluntarily move. If you are moved and you enter into an affected creature space, the spell ends. If someone gusts you into something, spell ends. If you are unfortunately slip down a large steep hill and you tumble through an ally space, the spell ends. You can't be near your friends whenever you cast this. You can't do a lot of things. I would say this almost actively hampers you as much as it hampers a lot of the kinds of enemies you're going to be fighting, sometimes more so, because again,
I would think more so. Yeah, definitely.
Because you're like, I don't want to lose my concentration on this. I spent a 5th level spell slot on this, but I also can't move anywhere.
I'm stuck.
Yeah, I don't see it.
I mean, not only is the concentration, making this less more of a liability, but it also keeps you from using better concentration spells.
Good, yeah. You get better concentration spells from 3rd level onward. There are 3rd level spells that make this spell look like dookie. Haste makes this spell look like ass. Greater Invisibility is leagues better than this if you don't want to get hit. It's way better, and it costs a lower level spell slot and gives you advantage on all of your attack rolls. Are you kidding me? Why would you ever cast this?
I would not.
Yeah.
We've pretty much beaten it to death. I can't think of any circumstance where I'd want this.
Maybe because if it has a functioning brain, it'll figure out to hit you with rocks. And if it doesn't have a functioning brain, it's an undead or a construct. So, like, yeah. I don't know.
The only thing, cosmetically, like, if you want to spend a 5th level slot on this, mosquito netting.
Sure. But you can't. You have to be very still for the full hour.
When you're sleeping.
Yes, for an hour.
Oh, it's only going to be an hour. Yeah, it seemed like a long duration. But the only use case I can think, it's a very short duration. All right. Well, that was what was this? Antilife Shell.
1 out of
fun. Yeah, I'm gonna agree with that.
There's very little redeeming qualities here.
All right. Commenters, tell us we're wrong.
We love to hear it.
Tell us why. All right, that was Antilife Shell. Thank you, Sam, and thank you everyone for joining us. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, informative, or entertaining, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button below. You needn't smash it, a gentle tap will suffice. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. And make sure you check out the links in the description, where you'll find my Caverns Creatures series of comedy fantasy novels, Sam's full review of the spell, and other fun things.